What's going on, guys? So if you clicked on this video, you probably own an M1 MacBook Air or are looking at the M1 MacBook Air in comparison to the M4 MacBook Air that just released. This is my personal M1 Air that I've had since launch with 256 gigabytes of storage. Yes, I've survived with the base storage option by Apple. Don't let any other tech tuber tell you otherwise. And a 16 gigabytes of RAM. More on that later. Now, I'll be comparing it to the newly released M4 Air, just like our new sponsor for today, Nobody. So right out the gate, I just want to let you know up front that if you fit into these three types of people, just click off the video and don't subscribe, because I don't want you messing up my audience demographic, because the people who do watch my channel do usually watch towards the end of the video. So if you are a tech enthusiast and the only thing you care about is having the latest and greatest stuff just to say you have it while undermining another person's wants and needs, not welcome. B, benchmarks, well, B for benchmark. Anyway, benchmark elitists, where the only thing you really care about is making your purchase decisions solely based off synthetic benchmarks and what comes higher on a graph or lower based on some test, not welcome. And C, if you are a super fan of a brand, yes, that includes Apple fans. My audience is regular consumers trying to make ends meet, enjoy life, and want to make a purchase decisions without all the marketing from the company or influencer. So if that is you, please subscribe. If not, take a hike. Okay, so with that out the way, let's talk about if you should upgrade the M1 Air to the M4 Air. The answer is no. See how I just gave you the answer up front? If this is your first laptop you're getting from Apple or macOS, or you're upgrading from an Intel MacBook, as we say in the South, bless your heart, I'm impressed you've held out this long, then jumping to the M4 Air might be the best choice. Let's dive into my regular comparisons, and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end of the video. First thing I want to talk about is price. It's the question most people care about, to be honest. I've seen the M1 Air in the US from official retailers starting at $450. My model in particular, I've seen around $600, which matches the storage and RAM spec of the $1,000 M4 MacBook Air. Now, when you put that in perspective, is it really worth paying nearly double? The answer is no. See you guys in the next video. Well, not exactly. We still have to outline the differences and improvements Apple has made in order to offer a machine nearly 5 years later for the same price. Now, my favorite category, can Touch ID please work? Thank you. My favorite category, build quality and design. The M1 Air, in my opinion, is one of the best designs by Apple next to the 14-inch, and it's really hard to grasp how thin and light the M1 MacBook Air is until you match it up against another modern laptop by Apple. It has that coined wedge-shaped design, and I'll probably show you guys on the overhead as well, where it kind of tapers down, and the wedge-shaped design, and when it comes to typing, is comfortable since it's not just a straight 90-degree angle on your wrist. You see that? I mean, it's pretty hard to see. See how it like comes down to like a little point? Unfortunately, we are only limited to 2 Thunderbolt ports and a headphone jack. Those are the only ports that are offered on the M1 Air. Moving over to the M4 MacBook Air, it goes towards a more traditional laptop design with rounded corners. So it's flat on both the top and bottom, and even these, things that raise up the laptop are also flat as well. So if you tend to use this on a table, it's actually pretty comfortable versus the M1 MacBook Air. The bottom part is a bit rounded off. By the way, this is the Icons skin by dbrand. This is the leather one because I know people are going to ask down in the comments below. Leather has held up pretty well, as you can see, all that nice patina over the years. The ports on the M4 Air have been upgraded to Thunderbolt 4, and don't worry too much about Thunderbolt 3 versus Thunderbolt 4, even versus Thunderbolt 5. Just know that the higher the number, the more you can push peripherals and storage solutions using that Thunderbolt number. If that didn't make a lot of sense, just pick up a USB-C hub on Amazon, or even if you walk through Marshalls while you're waiting for the cashiers, and you'll be completely fine. Anyway, the MagSafe also makes a return as well, and you have a headphone jack. Now, people do mention that having an extra port now that you can charge with MagSafe is enough to upgrade from M1 to the M2, M3, and even now the M4 laptops. I think that's kind of absurd, because as a person who does use the M1 MacBook Air, I've just been so used to charging for USB-C for like the past decade, and it's something that Apple actually brought back, believe it or not. They actually took away MagSafe and now they returned it, and even though MagSafe is available, I rarely bring or even charge MagSafe because it's just another type of cable that I don't want to bring around, and I'd rather just plug in USB-C if I need to charge my laptop. And if I need to charge another device like my phone or something, or my AirPods, I'll just use the other USB-C port. It's not like I really need more than two. If you need more than two, I'd say just pick up a dongle, or here's your option, the M4 MacBook Air. The only argument I can see is if you're taking your laptop to public places, or you have children or pets that tend to have your laptop fling across the room, plug it in with MagSafe. Otherwise, USB-C is the way to go in my opinion. One less cable to worry about. The other thing that I want to mention as well is that I'm so confident in the battery life of the MacBook Air that I don't even bring my charger whenever I go out because I know it's pretty much going to last the whole day. However, if you think you're going to benefit from having MagSafe and two Thunderbolt ports, the M4 MacBook Air is the clear winner. The last thing I'll mention in design is the laptop feel. And what do I mean by laptop feel? It's, for one, I don't know how we have a laptop reviews without actually talking about how the laptop feels in your lap. Anyway, M1, in my opinion, is more comfortable to use in my lap just because of its tapered design, but with the M4 MacBook Air, with its more boxy shape, with its still roundedness around the edges, I would say they're both comfortable and you won't be unhappy with either. I would just say this has a bit more comfortability in the lap. The M4 runs a bit hotter, so just make sure to wear multiple pants or use a pillow when using this for extended periods of time, or just use like this laptop thing I got on Amazon for like 15 bucks. Not sponsored, by the way. Seriously. The next major category is the display, an important component of a laptop or any product because it's the thing we interact with our eyes, so it's not tangible, but our eyes are sensitive to things that aren't pleasant. I have no idea what I was trying to say, but as you can see here, the display looks more pushed out and has a notch at the top versus the old school box display that we have on the M1 MacBook Air. Personally, it doesn't bother me that much. I know for some people, the same people I said not to subscribe or watch my videos, will go absolutely crazy that the M1 Air has such thick bezels in 2025, but the reality is once you use it for a couple hours, you'll probably forget what other displays look like, especially if you don't constantly compare it to other machines on a daily basis. That's like shopping for a TV and saying, wow, these both look incredible, even though the newer one may have slightly slimmer bezels, get brighter, but at the end of the day, you see a colorful image. The contrast is essentially the same, except the newer model is double the price of the old one, and when you bring it back to your place, without comparing it to the newer model, it still looks better than like the 8 or 10-year-old TV you just replaced. Think about it that way. Now, objectively, the M4 Air display is better on paper and in real life. The screen does in fact get brighter. The bezels are in fact slimmer, and it does have a bit more of a sheen to it compared to my M1 Air, but it could just be my M1 Air needs a bit of cleaning. I would give the edge in terms of the overall display to the M4 MacBook Air though. It is a really nice display to look at compared to the M1 Air. The trackpad and keyboard, I won't spend much time here. There's some minor changes to the font and such, but in terms of the keyboard and the typing experience, it's more or less the same. If you used a MacBook keyboard for like the past 10 years and you managed to skip over the whole butterfly craze, you're not gonna have a hard time adjusting from M1, M4, or even some of the older MacBooks up until now. The trackpad, from what I've used so far, it doesn't feel any less clicky or responsive on my M1 Air than it does on the M4. The one thing I will mention though is the function row is larger on the M4 Air. As you can see here on the M1, it's just, you know, half the size of the regular key and Touch ID is this, but on the M4 Air, you can see that the function row is much larger and the Touch ID kind of resembles on what we get on the Magic Keyboard, but it really doesn't affect how you type or use the keyboard day to day. Now, the speakers are an interesting test and I'll give you my thoughts after, but I'll let you guys take a listen and give you my thoughts. So the M1 Air sounds tinny in comparison to the M4 Air, where it sounds more open, is the best way that I would describe it. The M1 Air does sound slightly louder, but loud doesn't necessarily mean better. I rather have a slightly quieter, more balanced audio profile than a louder one that gets tinny. If you don't listen on max volume, I'd say they're both pretty comparable. But if you enjoy listening to content on the go and the speakers alone, I'd say the M4 Air is the winner. Another great upgrade, I would say, is the camera and microphone to some degree. With the microphone, the camera for sure has an upgrade. Take a listen and watch. So this is a microphone and a webcam test on the M1 MacBook Air. You guys let me know how it looks and sounds. This is ideal lighting. By the way, if you want to do like the whole portrait background like this, where you can blur automatically and even do the studio light, you can do that on the MacBook Air M1. You can also do the fancy background as well, just because it is an M processor. You can really do a lot of fancy stuff. But unlike the nice things that we have when it comes to the M4 MacBook Air, I don't have the whole center stage. So if I move around, it really just stays stationary. You can do the reactions too. So once again, pretty cool stuff, but let's go ahead and switch to a lower light condition to see how the camera fares. So now I'm in more of a lower light condition on the M1 MacBook Air, and this is where I would say it just falls apart. Even if I stay stationary, I would say it's pretty hard to discern where I am. It's just super grainy. But in terms of the microphone, I'm sure you can hear me. It's actually dimming even more. I have no idea what the webcam is trying to do. But this is the quality. I have to sneeze, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it. So if you wanted to do any type of low light webcam, please get the M4 MacBook Air. This is just not acceptable. This is a microphone and webcam test on the M4 MacBook Air. You guys let me know how it looks and sounds. This does have center stage, so if I were to like go down a little bit, move over to the left or move over to the right, I mean, I really don't know. But, you know, the camera does follow me, tries to keep me centered. If more people enter in the frame, it does try to keep everyone within the focus. Also has availability to do the desk view. I can do the same thing where I have portrait mode, studio light, the background as well. So really, I would say the advantage here is the center stage, how you're able to like move around, have a more, I guess, natural feel with the camera no matter where you are. And once again, this does have reactions. So lame. So this is where a lot of webcams start to struggle in lower light conditions. So I'm just assuming that I have like a lamp or my light's not on that high. And I would say if I move around, it's really hard to discern who I am. It's just as if I'm on a CCTV and someone reported me to the cops. But if you're stationary and you're pretty close to your screen because your screen is giving you brightness, it's okay. I would say it's not spectacular, but you know, if you're moving around trying to do stuff, the webcam is just not that great. But stationary, I'd say it's decent. Specs are an important category, and if you want to take advantage of some of the most common configurations, such as the base specs, like in the M4 Air in particular, 256 gigabytes of storage and 16 gigabytes of RAM. On the M1 Air side, if you want to get 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage, I actually recommend people not to go to Apple unless Apple is your only resource, or you're in a country where buying direct from Apple or a third-party authorized retailer is your only option. That's because the common configuration can actually be found at retailers here in the US, such as Best Buy, Walmart, Amazon, Micro Center, and many more for cheaper and regularly go on sale. If you need to configure the machine in any way, you can spec up the M4 Air to get up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, but they both still cap out at 24 terabytes of internal storage. The more telling difference that I guess most people care about is M1 versus M4. Now, no matter what benchmark I show you, the M4 is going to outperform the M1 in almost every category. It's 3 generations later, and I hope Apple and their engineers have made improvements to Apple Silicon nearly 5 years later. Now, just because it's better in charts doesn't necessarily mean you'll need the performance. Here's what it boils down to, because I don't need this to be a 20-minute video. I don't want to deter you from the M4 Air because it is the better chip. However, if you are doing everyday tasks that can be done on the web browser, or you're using things like the Microsoft Suite, FaceTiming friends and family, watching Netflix, Disney Plus, here and there, dare I say, dabble in a little bit of coding, because I've ran plenty of things in Docker on this M1 Air, still to this day, before ARM was fully migrated over back in 2020. The M1 Air is going to do it just fine. M1 through M4 will do it fine, and you probably won't notice a difference unless I told you. Even when you start to introduce things like photo editing, video editing, programming, don't really want to include AI modeling here, but regardless, M1 all the way up to M4 can do it. However, the real reason I would sway people over to the M4 Air is if you do more intensive stuff on a daily basis. If it's every now and then, I would say you're probably not going to notice too much if you get M1 all the way up to M4. But if you start to do it every day, you're going to notice pretty quickly. So that leads me to talk about my conclusions and my recommendations on choosing between M1 versus M4. If you already own M1, it might seem enticing to upgrade to the new kid on the block. But if you don't need the performance and the M1 isn't struggling for you, then just stick with it. Because tech aside, from a financial standpoint, the longer you hold on to your product, the more value you're getting out of it. If your laptop is hitching or causing you frustration, it's time to upgrade. As a matter of fact, let me give you an example. For example, this is my Acer laptop. If your laptop looks something like this, that was not intentional, but if you have to like prop your laptop against the wall for it to stand up, it's time to upgrade, okay? If you are still on Intel, once again, bless your heart, I really don't know how you're holding out this long. The laptops aren't featured here, but I would say at a minimum, get M3. If not, M4 is a nice starting point. If money is an issue, M1 Air is going to be fine. Trust me, because these M machines are not built the same as the Intel ones. Getting a 4-year-old Intel MacBook nowadays would just be probably one of the worst decisions you can make. But these M machines are just, I hate to say it, they're just not built the same as the Intel ones. Speaking about not being built the same, in a literal sense, the M4 laptops are built in Vietnam. Fun fact, the rest are built in China. So what am I going to do with my M1 Air? I'll still keep it because it still does everything I need it to do. I already have a Mac Mini that does most of my heavy intensive stuff, and if I need to do even more crazy stuff, well, I can just SSH from this MacBook Air to my Mac Mini or my home server. The only thing I really hate about my M1 Air is that the battery life kind of sucks now, but that's because I've been using this laptop like a desktop for the past 4 years, and I'm actually not surprised because having to be plugged in for nearly 4 years and still getting mostly all-day battery life, I would say, is still pretty impressive. I think people are forgetting the impact the M1 Air had when it first released, and I keep saying this to this day. I don't think Apple realized, maybe they did, how good of a laptop the M1 Air was when it came out for $1,000, and still to this day, I would recommend this laptop to my family and friends if they didn't want to break the bank and just wanted to have a good laptop that serves their needs. If they do like very minimal task on the laptop. I don't know why I worded it that way, but you get what I'm trying to say. If they have an iPhone, it enhances the entire Apple experience as well. Because believe it or not, the target audience for the MacBook Air, and this is something that people need to understand from like a product perspective, you always got to think about your target audience. The MacBook Air isn't made to be doing video editing and like AI stuff, even though it can do it. That's not its intended purpose. The MacBook Air's target audience for a lot of people in this world, I don't want to throw out statistics like 99% of people, but a lot of people who need a laptop, if they want Mac OS, the Air lineup is made for you. If you want center stage, which I think is actually pretty awesome, better display, better speaker, fast charging with an extra MagSafe port, and if you intend to use it, and most importantly, want longer software support, because I have a feeling by like 2028, maybe even 2030, if Apple's crazy enough, that the M1 Air is going to be phased out and no longer supported, but I think it's still going to run pretty much fine. The M4 Air is the way to go in that regard. Just keep in mind, $1,000 versus almost half off that can pretty much do more or less the same thing. Which one do you really need? I'm just saying, consider the M1 or stick with it for a couple more years. The M1 changed the game, and at a lower price point, it is still changing the game in the used market. My recommendation, upgrade the RAM over the storage. Trust me, you'll thank me later. If you do any sort of development or want to get into programming or even edit 4K videos, 16 gigabytes of RAM will give you a better experience than more storage. If you do both, double thumbs up for me. Don't click the thumbs up button twice because you'll just like the video and then unlike it. Anyway, guys, I appreciate every single sub, like, and comment. Super close to 1,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers. And as always, guys, much love. Job well done. And I can lean with it, and I can rock with it. With the base spec 256 $250 just to say you have it while undermining another person's want. That was so perfect. That was so perfect. Then jump into the M4 Air might be the best choice. That pretty much matches the specs that you see on the latest M4 MacBook Air. Hey. Ports have been upgraded to Thunderbolt 4 with M4. I'm just kidding. Now people for the M4 Air, it would be the 16 gigabyte RAM module. What am I even saying? Then just stick with it. I almost said wicked. What the heck?